Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a very interesting, more of a knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Sinkevich and Shirogorov Bio. This one in particular is a Bio Light. There were also Bio Dark variants. What's the difference? On this one, the titanium scales are light, and the hardware, including the spacer, pocket clip, and pivot, are darker. And initially, I thought it was like a really dark blue. No, it's like an onyx color, which is really cool. The Bio Lights are opposite. They were dark on the titanium and lighter for the hardware, which is pretty cool. There were only 300 of these made, so 150 of the darks and 150 of the lights. This was a, this is a special edition Shirogorov, and you guys probably know Shirogorov knives in their most simple forms are not cheap. This one is wildly more expensive. I mean, I say wildly. It's quite a bit more expensive than a standard Shirogorov knife. You actually had to enter a lottery. As far as I understand, you had to enter a lottery to even have the option to buy it. That's right. For those of you who have already seen the price tag and are thinking, who would ever spend that much on a knife? They had to lottery the opportunity to buy these. That's how many people. All 300 of them sold, obviously. And now you'll have to spend more money on the secondary market to obtain it. But I'd still like to do an overview video because it's, people still seek these out. They want the information, or, just for the information, or because they actually plan to seek one out for themselves. So I'm going to cover this for you guys. Thank you so much to Brian M. for sending this in for me to take a look at. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. All right. Let's go ahead and get a measurement of this knife. Very beautiful knife. It definitely is a step up from a standard Shirogorov. We'll talk about in what ways. The overall length is coming in at about 8.75 inches overall width. In areas, if you measure like down here towards the frame, it's 4 inches. I would say we'll call that a 3.85 inch blade and 3.75 inches of cutting edge. Before we do standard size comparisons for, the people who are looking to get this information to actually acquire it, maybe you've got some Shirogorov knives already. So let's do some size comparisons up against some other more common Shirogorov knives like the F3 NS and the F95. This is actually the 0. So there you go. It's about the same overall length. Remember, we're kind of an angle here, so some of them might look longer or shorter, but it's really about the same. And then also up against the Quantum, which I believe is also just about the same thing overall. I think this is just kind of where, not all Shirogorov knives are exactly the size, but it is, like a common blade and handle length, right? Or overall blade length and overall length. It's just kind of the way that they do it. How about some size comparisons up against more common knives? Up against the Ontario Rat Model 1 and the Ontario Rat Model 2. You can see here, it's actually a little bit longer than the Rat number 1. When I first saw a picture of this, I thought it was going to be kind of small. Nope. I'm glad that it isn't either. I kind of like this size of Shirogorov. That's a preference thing, though. How about up against the Demco AD 20.5? There we go. How about up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3? Definitely a little bit larger than both. And last but not least, I think we'll put it up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue and the Benchmade Bug Out. How's the action on this guy? Well, it's a Shirogorov and it's running on multi-row bearings, so perfect. There's a difference between fall shut action and fall shut action on something like a Shirogorov. You can get fall shut action out of a knife that's running on bearings or just kind of loosey-goosey and the blade is heavy enough to get it to drop. And then you have the amount of control that's involved with something like this. It really is something beyond, right? It's one of those things where you watch it on video and you're like, I don't understand. I mean, I feel like you can get fall shut action out of a $50 knife nowadays in some cases. You can, but it's not the same thing. And it's one of those things where you can have somebody like me attempt to describe it to you, or you could handle one and it's kind of like, okay, I see. There's just a lot more control. I think maybe the number of bearings right? Assist with the consistency and the smoothness, and also obviously the finishing of the surfaces inside of the pivot, but the amount of control. I really don't like a blade that comes down like a guillotine. There's really nothing special about that to me, and it also feels a little bit dangerous. Something like this that, gravity and, all of the other elements are going to cause it to fall shut, but not so fast that it comes down on your finger. I mean, really, it's just kind of a turn, and it'll fall into the closed position with this perfectly consistent top to bottom feeling. And that's what you're getting here. It's the same thing on pretty much every Shirogorov knife. I can't say that the action feels more luxurious on this versus the other Shirogorovs I've handled, but it feels as luxurious, and Shirogorov knives tend to have substantially better action than most things, and even things that are, in the same price tier, right? Which is saying a lot because there's a lot of knives in this price tier that are really excellent and have really great action. This passes that sort of test that you look for. If you are somebody who has experienced Shirogorov knives, you're going to enjoy the action on this, definitely. It acts like maybe right there. Am I catching something? Nope. I thought maybe there would be double clutch. Oh, there's a detent ramp. Of course, right there. That's where it's going up over the ramp. But still, that will not create for a situation where, you could call it like it's kind of like on its way up the ramp about right here, but it will glide past that pretty easily, so I'm not sure if I really want to complain. The flipper tab is very low profile, but still easy to get a hold of, and man, the detent is just wonderful. They really tune their detents nicely, that nice sort of medium heavy click, and when you pull down on that flipper tab, which is the only way to deploy it, you're getting a very satisfactory thwack every single time. That crisp break, and then the second impact after it slams into the open position. Just really nice. That's what you look for. So, anyways, that was a long-winded way of saying the action's very good. Very good action with this guy. Okay, let's go ahead and do carry profile. Who would ever carry that? Actually, the guy who owns it carries it. It was pretty new when he sent it to me, but he said, I've already carried and used it, but when it comes back, it'll also be, a user. So, yeah, some people do, right? I have a Shirogorov that I carry and use. It's actually this guy. This is the one that I like to carry and use. Not crazy. I'm not chopping bricks in half with it because that's not what you do with a pocket knife. Some people will carry and use these things for sure. Thickness, it's actually really thin. Definitely a little bit thinner than the Spyderco Para 3. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. You can see here this guy is pretty long, but not... Is it a hair longer? I think maybe it's a hair longer. Just going to hold it above here. It is a little bit. Maybe an 1/8 of an inch longer than the Spyderco PM2. Definitely longer than the Para 3. Nowhere near as tall as either. This has really, really good ratios. Like the blade to handle ratio is really good. That's the same kind of thing with all Shirogorov knives, which is probably why they stay within the same. The amount of usable cutting edge that you get with Shirogorov knives for how much knife is actually in your pocket is amazing. But what's funny is all three of these that I showed are actually quite a bit more bulky than the Bio. The Bio is like thinner. Especially like put it up against the F3 and S, for example. It's way thinner, and there's just way less material overall because it has a thinner, like a more narrow profile, right? So you're really maximizing a lot of utility with this build, and that's one of the things that Shirogorov does really, really well, right? Is it outside of the realm of necessary utility? Yes. But you clicked on a video that said Shirogorov. You already knew that, and so does every other person down in the comment section. There is nobody to educate. Knock yourself out. Go ahead, right? Get your wiffle bat ready. But there's nobody to educate. Everybody here knows, right? You're not telling anybody anything they don't know. But this is enthusiast territory. But people who appreciate enthusiast elements still definitely appreciate things like balance, right? Or maximizing the amount of usable cutting edge for the total amount of handle space, even if the vast majority of people won't use it because it's interesting, right? It's neat to see the things like, what the people behind Shirogorov knives will do if they really, go maximum, which is generally what they do, right? So it's just one of those things where it might be kind of hard to wrap your head around the why, right? And the answer is because why not? That's the simple truth of it. And it has been for a very long time. let's go ahead and let's weigh it, right? Speaking of, min-maxing, I guess. The weight, and I mean, I'm certain we've got some weight reduction, actually. Yeah, quite a bit in there. Can we see? I don't even know where the flashlight is. The weight on the Bio, wow, under 4 ounces. Really impressive considering you have nearly a 4-inch blade. 3.99 ounces of weight for 3.85. You could call it a 4-inch blade if you measure at the base. So that's pretty rare to get that ratio on a knife, right? It's really rare to get that on a 4-inch blade. Some people really don't care, but I mean, just as far as, ask somebody who's got 3,200 uploads on YouTube, and all of them are about knives. Ask somebody who's handled a lot of knives. We don't get that very often, right? It has better ratios than the other Shirogorov knives that I've shown here, and some of those are, favorites. Balance is right where you're going to have your index finger in the standard grip, or really the only grip that you're going to be. I mean, you could choke back a little bit. There's a lot of real estate, but yeah, it's just really, really nice. I'm not going to do the hardware check. It has that little try thing, and truthfully, I'm not sure if this, so I've got the box here, and I don't know if it comes with a tool and he just didn't send it. It might. That's the one detail that I forgot to take a look at. But it comes with the certificate of authenticity, a little salt pack thing, and of course the microfiber cloth. But I don't have the correct tools to fit the pivot and like the pocket clip, but you can see here, like this is just a Torx, but the pivot, the pocket clip, and that's pretty much it, right? I mean, then the total number of hardware pieces is incredibly minimal, which is really, really cool. But they use proprietary hardware, which would be really bothersome if this were a knife that a lot of people use to the point where you'd have to take it apart all the time. I'm going to guess that's probably not the case, right? So from a utilitarian standpoint, would I have preferred Torx? Yeah, but it's not, right? And I don't know how much we really can complain considering these are limited run knives and they are more often collected and showcased than actually used. But if you plan to pick one of these up and actually use it, that's something you're going to have to consider. There is a tool for these. They wouldn't make that without the tool. My guess is maybe it came with a bit, maybe not, right? But there is a tool to disassemble it. You want to check with Shirogorov knives before you actually disassemble these things because it could void any warranty that's in place. Let's see here. We're going to measure blade stock thickness. That's the last thing we need to do before we move on here into the meat and potatoes. That's I think a relatively thin blade for Shirogorov. They usually go a bit thicker. I'm going to say that's probably 125. Are we right? Oh no, it's 120. Definitely on the thinner side for Shirogorov. Okay, so Sinkevich and Shirogorov. I've always said that whenever I think of Sinkevich, I think of more like the S-shaped curvature, right? But every time I say that, there's people who are like, dude, there are tons of knives from Sinkevich that are not that aggressively S-shaped. And they're right. There are tons of them. This is one of them. This is a little bit more relaxed. It's a little bit less curvy. I don't really like the curvy, crazy handle shapes and blade shapes, but some people do. I think this is an absolutely beautiful profile. We don't normally see texturing on your base level production Shirogorov knives, and this is still a production knife. It's just the amount of effort that goes into it is substantially more, right? A lot of people think that, companies like we are essentially making the exact same thing and Shirogorov is just like ripping everybody's faces off. No, a WE knife is absolutely not made, like a $200, $300, $400 WE knife is absolutely not made the same way as a, $1,000 plus Shirogorov knife. There is substantially more that goes into this. And even if we are just talking about machining titanium, the total amount of machining time and machining complexity differ. It's not like you just throw it in an oven and it goes brrr, right? We're not playing by Minecraft rules here, guys. It's it's different. It's absolutely different. You have to factor in the cost of machining time, right? And if you have something more complex or you're, machining the piece is spending more time on the machine, then you're wearing it out, and then you have to factor in costs like that. Absolutely. On top of material costs, things like that, then you have to finish it. And then you have to, make sure that the tolerances are correct. You have to make sure that the machines are consistently calibrated correctly. Quality control has to be. That all costs money, right? Again, and if we're going by Minecraft rules, then nobody has to maintain the thing because it's not real. It's just a video game that you put a bunch of crap into and it spits out what you want, right? I think people forget or just don't know. That being said, the price on this is a little bit out of control, right? Now that we're here, we've made it 15 minutes in. This is just me mitigating all of the typical, oh, I can't believe it still costs so much money for a pocket knife. Just me mitigating that, right? Let's kind of talk about the price later on in the video. $1,650 for this bad boy. Wow. Is it a step up from your typical production Shirogorov knives? Oh, yeah, definitely. But I find the standard pricing for Shirogorov knives to be a bit out of control, right? I think the best priced Shirogorov knife on the market is the F3NS, and I think when I bought mine it was $900, which felt about right? Versus other $900 knives on the market and comparing it with the tiers above and below it. Definitely. So, had they charged something like $1,200 or $1,300 for this, I think it would have been a little bit more fair because we do have more going on here. I mean, look at the freaking titanium. God bless it. That is really, really beautiful. The way that they've finished the tie, the way that they have milled it, right, with sort of like these sort of swoop, and at the edge of the swoop, right, which there is like a chamfer line right here. And also, these are ever so slightly contoured. It's just, the subtlety of some of this stuff is absolutely wild. And then the lines, they sort of widen out here, and then they kind of come together and they swoop back out. That's really nice, right? It's not just like a simple texture pattern. There's a lot, it's not like they just pump it into the machine goes, no. Really nice, really, really beautiful. Offers meaningful traction, like a nice, it's amazing how smooth it is, but at the same time, it's not so aggressive that it's going to fray up your pants or anything. Every edge is knocked down. There's not a single part of this knife that comes anywhere close to something I would describe as a hot spot. No, this is all masterfully done. The finish on the titanium is also something that I don't normally see. Like at first glance, it kind of just looks like titanium that's been darkened a little bit, but then the more I look at it, the more I realize, it's not quite, tumbled titanium's not really looking like this, right? You're kind of working finish if we're, going, talking about more of the concrete finished titanium where you're, black washed or acid washed looking titanium, right? Or your, even your DLC stuff or anything like that. We're talking about all the different coatings that I've seen on titanium, the different colors or the different general finishes of titanium. If I'm being perfectly honest, this is kind of a shade that I don't usually see, especially like these onyx finish. This is like really like some specific current of electricity, some really high crazy voltage that they, how they get titanium to turn this darker charcoal color. But it's like dark, slightly reflective titanium here, and then much darker non-reflective titanium. I just don't usually see that. It's just really cool, right? I would imagine the Bio Dark looks awesome. I'm not sure which one that I would want. I think they both sound amazing. But it does look really, really nice, and I really appreciate it. This has like a some sort of media or glass blasted blade here, which is really similar to what you see with like, the Quantum. I used to call this like a cloudy day finish. I just didn't know. It's some teeny tiny little media that they're blasting it with, right? And they might have changed it over time, so it's hard for me to say, but it looks really beautiful. And then the flats here are hand rubbed satin. We have a nice swedge, and then you have a mirror polished edge, which is not something that you get with a production Shirogorov knife. You definitely get a nice sharp edge for sure, but it doesn't look like that, right? You're always going to get a perfectly consistent and even edge on a Shirogorov knife, but I have two Shirogorovs that have mirror edge, and they're also special edition. So that might be something that's just exclusive to special edition variants. This isn't quite custom division, right? For those of you wondering, It's not a full-on like custom, but it's kind of in between, right? So the end result here is a blade that has, it's a drop point. It's got a long swedge. It's got plenty of belly. It starts pretty thin. So the end result here is a very thin cutting edge. It's definitely thinner behind the edge than any of my Shirogorovs. And the final cutting edge is just absolutely ridiculous. It's the same as the RJ Martin that I've got, the RJM, the soft overkill from Shirogorov. It's just insane. But this is even thinner, right? Yeah, that'll do it. The blade steel's M398, which is, imagine M390, but with substantially better edge retention. Not quite as good in the corrosion resistance department. And wow, is it not tough? I mean, if you thought M390 wasn't tough, right? And if you're new and you thought a lot of new people just think M390 is like an invincible steel. It's like all the stats maxed out. No, that's not how composition works. Composition is a multi-directional teeter-totter, meaning if you add something in one area, you usually have to take away in another area. M390 is not a tough steel. So M398, which is a super version of M390 and is definitely capable of being optimized at higher Rockwell hardnesses, is very much not tough. This is a chippy steel when it's optimized or when it's heat treated correctly. Now, obviously, you'll notice this a lot more if you plan to pound the blade through rebar, which would be a stupid idea, right? That's like going outside and eating rocks. Your teeth are not meant to do that. This blade is not meant to cut things like that. You should cut things that are not as hard as the blade. Even, with that being the case, if you put a lot of pressure on the blade and you cut into a material that's relatively dense, but not as dense as the steel on the blade, you push hard enough, you create additional pressure there. Right, so that even cutting materials that are not quite as hard as the blade could result in the blade chipping a little bit. I don't know why I'm taking the time in this review to talk about that, but yeah, if you're going to take this out and use it, expect periodic chips, right? Which would be a bummer because then you're going to have to reprofile the blade and put that mirror polish back on it yourself. But fortunately nowadays, putting a mirror edge on a knife is not really like a super special skill. Or sharpening steels like M398 is not really all that special to skill in. We have the cost of guided diamond sharpeners has come like way down. It's still expensive, but like pretty much anybody can learn to do that fairly quickly. It's different with everybody, but that's no longer like a super special like ninja level 100 clan freaking. You'll have people tell you that it is that they spent like. I spent 70 years in the mountains learning the legendary techniques of sharpening. Well, or you can just order the diamond thing online and teach yourself over like a couple of weeks. Really that's seriously about it. So you could, right? But you're going to go through a lot of money and a lot of effort to maintain that, right? So it's kind of up to you. But that's just that you can expect that if you're going to use this knife, M398, right? You're going to run into a little bit of a problem. But if you use it only, exclusively on lighter materials, man, it's going to cut forever. It's going to cut everything, and it's just going to cut forever, right? Really, really nice. Okay, enough with the blade. On one side, we have the Shirogorov Bear, and then on the other side, we have the Sinkevich design logo, and that's pretty much it. The overall presentation and fit and finish of this knife is absolute perfection. I would expect nothing less from Shirogorov. There are no errors anywhere. They're even like really highlighting their ability to center a blade by creating that little U shape in the backspacer, which is risky because if the blade is off center, you're really going to know. Nope, absolutely nailed it. I like the extra machine work right here around this lanyard thing, right? I don't care about putting a lanyard in there. It just looks nice. They could have easily just made this like a flush backspacer, and they didn't. They went out of their way to do something a little bit fancy back here, and I think it looks really nice. The pocket clip is only mountable for right-handed people. I always say that I don't care so much if they would mill a spot out for lefties because who cares? Well, I'm going to eat my words here because, man, if they had milled a spot out for the pocket clip to be mounted on this side, it really would have messed up this perfect flow, right? Something I really appreciate here is that all the hardware, there's no hardware showing, right? It's just on this side, and there's only one screw. So this is obviously lipped in here somehow underneath the scales, which is a really, really nice way of doing that. It just allows you to appreciate the aesthetic of this, right? And I mean, even on this side, you're really hardly looking at any hardware. It's really nice. This pocket clip is just wonderful. This is such a freaking sweet clip, man. Milled, comes to like an apex at the top here. All of the edges nicely knocked down. And even though it rides right on the top of texturing, it's like I said, the texturing is both textured and smooth at the same time. It passes over it as if it's not even there. There's a beautiful ramp underneath. The clip doesn't create a hot spot. Golly. I mean, is it really like, it doesn't take a 24-minute video to know that Shirogorov and Sinkevich make a good knife, right? It's like, this wasn't, I mean, I'm here doing my duty for people who want to hear my thoughts, right? But you say, hey, listen, hey, everybody, we got a knife made by Sinkevich and Shirogorov. So anybody wants, and the whole crowd's going to go, I'm sure it's amazing. You don't even have to go and say no more, right? We don't really need much more information than that. It's probably going to be amazing as it has been in the past, right? And that's the case here. It really is. It's just that great. There's a steel lock bar insert doubling as the over travel stop. So that's nice. They added a little bit of a dinger there. Just, I don't know why, but just to keep it from being a square, right? They got to be different. That's fine. It looks nice. Probably to get out of the way of something, truthfully. There's a massive amount of shouldering, and you can see the stop pin located in there, but it goes really deep into the tang of the blade. As far as I can tell, yeah, it's also trying to keep my fingers out of the way because it's fall shut. It's a closed position stop pin too. Really nice though. Can't touch the edge, and part of the reason for that is because of the backspacer here. That's really nice, you know. They would have had to have the blade be substantially more narrow. Otherwise, you might be able to get in there and touch the edge, like with your I mean, you can dig in and like touch the first part of it right here, but you have to go out of your way. So I can't really complain there too much. But yeah, really nice. There's no blade play up, down, left, or right. I got to touch the blade. No blade play up, down, left, or right. Just absolutely beautiful. No lock stick, right? Beautiful action. No detent lash. All of that. Beautiful. Makes no sense to complain about the price on this. I mean, I could be like, I wouldn't have paid that much money for it, right? Obviously, they don't care. You're definitely, I mean, if you're wondering, like, you know, I don't know, like, could it be really worth it? In my opinion, you're absolutely paying a premium for this being a special edition, for this being a, you know, it's a special edition Shirogorov and Sinkevich design. And they only did a few pieces, right? So you're going to pay some extra money. That's pretty common. That's just what you're going to see. It's also the case that these are, you know, again, for people just like struggling, like trying to hold the pieces of their brain together, like, why would you buy? People have a million different reasons, but also to drive the nail in the coffin of what I'm saying here, it's already worth more money. So no matter what we say, no matter how much spaghetti we make in our pants over the price, it's already worth more money, right? And as you're screaming, how could that possibly be? There's somebody buying it right now for that much more money. Completely and totally deaf to the complaints that will inevitably come. This is part of the knife world. It's just how it works, right? It's much easier to just accept it and move on, right? You don't have to embrace it and make it a part of your personal life, but it's much, much easier to just accept it and move on because you're not going to stop that train with your wiffle bat. It's just not going to happen. So, now, you know, if this were a non-special edition, non-limited run, and they put it out for $1,650, I'd be like, I'm thinking $1,200, $1,300. It's really, really nice, right? Definitely a little nicer than your standard Shirogorovs, which are, again, substantially nicer than the typical, you know, titanium and M390 production knives that we see in the multi-$100 territory of the knife world. But yeah, but, you know, again, it doesn't really matter. So if you're going to seek one of these out, you ain't going to pay $1,650 for it, you know, $1,650. The vast majority of the people who have these that are looking to sell them, they're in perfect condition and they're going to charge more money, right? You could probably go find one of these on Arizona Custom Knives right now for God knows what. I don't even want to know, right? Probably a lot more. I'm not going to tell you guys what I think they're worth because that's not what I do on this channel. But I just wanted to give you all of the details and give you guys my impressions. This is extremely nice. Not a knife that I'm going to recommend to people, but definitely one of the nicest knives that I have reviewed on this channel. And I am definitely, I mean, this is my favorite Sinkevich design ever. I mean, honestly, I really can't find much of a flaw with this design. It really is just absolutely stunning. It has a lot of details that it makes what I do more fun. So obviously, I turn this into a 30-minute upload. I wouldn't do this if I didn't enjoy it. So It is going to go on my favorite knives of all time playlist, but just understand that doesn't mean that I'm like openly recommending this or trying to push people towards buying it. I just really love the design, and this will go back to the owner as soon as I'm done with it. So it's not like I get to keep it. I'm even going to pay to ship it back. It's actually the review cost me money. But it's cool, and I'm glad to have it here, on the channel. I'm glad to have had an opportunity to take a look at it. Okay, I think that's going to be pretty much it. This is a cool one. Thank you again to the gentleman who sent it, which I have to make sure I know. Yeah, Brian M. Got to make sure and say what he told me to say on the paper there. Thanks for all the details there. Made it a little easier to review this. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.